to the MMA Roadshow, episode number 208. My name is John Morgan. Cold Coffee is with me.
What?
Hello. Finally
Whoa.
back together. I don't even want to sit down and do the math and figure it out. It feels like it's been a while, though.
It has been a while.
I feel like we've done some shows.
Well, you've been on the road.
Been on the road, man. I've been on the road.
It has been a while.
Not this week, though. We are in beautiful Las Vegas.
I want to say the
Chilling at
last
the
one.
Casa de Cold Coffee.
I was going to say the last one. Didn't we do it at B-Dubs?
Oh, that was the last one.
Would have been a B-Dubs. So that means it was after.
Was it the week of 235?
It'd have to be 235 because I want to say it was during UFC event.
Boy, that was really only like 3 weeks ago. It just
That
feels
was
like
a long time ago. We do this show every week.
In the world of mixed martial arts, that is a long time.
And the fact that we do this every week, so the fact that, we weren't there, so yeah. It even got to the point where I noticed on the last episode, you didn't even say I wasn't even there.
I know. You know what's funny?
It's been that long since I haven't done it with you that you forgot I sometimes do this show with you.
Nobody's listening. I was like, people are tired of hearing me say Cold Coffee's not here.
Just because he's never here. He's never here anymore.
Well, and you know what? We did a good job of cranking out a couple and a half episodes. So instead of just 2 episodes, it was like 4 episodes. So that's right. It did feel like probably a little bit longer. So
you had guys with much better accents.
Sorry, sir. I will apologize. That
yes.
I didn't leave you out. You were always in my heart, bro. Always in my heart. But I will say, I
can't believe you didn't have Kamikaze on there once while you were over in London.
I don't think he really likes doing the...
That's why he should be on.
Oh, got to get him on there and make him uncomfortable?
Got to make him uncomfortable.
I think he basically, like, while we sit there and do the podcast, he
tries to make up work.
He's not even really editing. He just make it look like he's video editing.
He's, like, looking at porn or something.
Totally. Simon Head killed it, though, man. I was happy to have Simon Head in the house, man. He ended up making his MMA Junkie radio debut this week to talk about UFC London as well.
That's right. I did see that.
Yeah, no, it was cool, man. So we missed you in London, but I'm glad to be here in the Casa de Cold Coffee. Now, even though we are chilling at home in Las Vegas, just in case you're worried that the MMA Junkie coverage is not going to be that good this weekend because we're chilling at home, don't you worry. We got you covered. Mike Bond is in Nashville for UFC on ESPN Plus 6. And Matt Erickson is in Thackerville, Oklahoma for Bellator 218.
No one else is there.
No one else is in Thackerville, Oklahoma, but we got you covered.
You're right. When you said it's not, you were saying that you were worried that people thought that the coverage wouldn't be so good.
Right.
That is true. It's just we'll still have coverage.
Oh wow!
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Wow.
No, but yeah,
it's
funny. Like poor Bond and Erickson, like literally. Even though today at Media Day, Bond had some company, but poor dude's just been sitting by himself.
At both shows, both shows.
Erickson,
really light.
It's just literally him.
Yeah,
as well. And it's
really
funny. He's
light media coverage.
If nobody hears or watches the event, did it really happen? That's some like metaphysical shit. Like if the tree falls in the forest and no one hears it, did it really fall?
Listen, man, and that's one. I mean, look, it's arguments that we have, but that to me. That is what gets me interested in the fights is what's happening in the lead up. What are people saying? What are they talking about? I mean, I love fights.
Yeah.
But you like the individuals, you like the human beings involved in it. You like to know what they're dealing with, and I agree, man. Sometimes when a fight card just happens and you don't know anything about what's going on or why they're there, it doesn't.
It's like and especially too when it's happening so much that it's unfortunate that people won't just say, "Oh, okay, oh, there's a fight this weekend. Let's see what's going on about it." It's because there's a fight every weekend that they're just like, "Oh, there's no real big names on this one. I'm gonna maybe take this off," or "Oh, it's an ESPN Plus. I haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Yep.
Maybe I'm not gonna turn this one on." And it's unfortunate because you're right. I mean, like there could be some seriously just barn burning fights that happen, but when it happens every time, it's just a lot to keep up on. I mean, it's a lot for us. We work in it. We get paid to watch this, and sometimes it's
sneak
unbearable.
Up on us.
Like I already know what I'm doing, even if I'm not on the road. I know what my weekend's like because there's some damn fight that we have to do, which is fine. I get it. It pays the bill, but it's like, it's hard to really get excited for events if you don't know, like you said, the story of somebody, just because there's just so much, So when you have like some of these fights that are just coming, and let alone 2 in one weekend, you're already gonna have people that are split either 2 ways. Because if somebody's just like, oh, maybe I'll watch little fights. Sorry, Bellator. A lot of people are probably going to go the ESPN route, if there's not a lot of big names on the Bellator card. But I don't know. But I feel for those guys because I've been on events where it's just, and I know you have many times, being the only media guy at an event, and you see this guy, and let alone we'll go out of our way to get some of these early interviews. You do the interview. Oh, hey, we have a open workout the next day. We're gonna have interviews, and nobody else is there, and it's like, I know I just saw you yesterday.
So what happened in the last 24
yeah,
hours?
so what's been going on? And the thing with poor Mike on this one, he interviewed, I want to say the guys the same day as the open workout scrums.
Right.
So literally hours had passed.
Had to go interview
It wasn't
again.
even 24 hours. Yeah, and it's like, okay, what didn't I already cover in the 10-minute interview that I did?
Let me follow up on that question we had earlier today.
Yeah. What didn't I ask? How's your mom? How's your mom? Let's talk your neighbors. How are your neighbors?
Don't ask Mike Chiesa about that.
What's that?
About his mom. What'd you say about my mom? What'd you say about my mom?
I'm gonna slap you.
No, you know what's funny though? Talking about storytelling, I happened to see today, and I want to give some kudos to ESPN, man, for their coverage so far. I mean, of course, they're doing the big pieces, the big Till piece, the big Askren piece, or whatever. But I think they're going out of their way to make sure they highlight people around the card. I saw Brendan Fitzgerald actually tweet that they sat down for an extended interview with Bryce Mitchell. I'm a big Bryce Mitchell fan, man. I love Thug Nasty. They did a big sit-down interview with him at some honky-tonk bar in Nashville or something like that. Yeah, not a safety first. No, they didn't. I don't think they. Well, we'll see. I don't know how much they spent talking about his scrotum. But so I like that they're doing that. I did also see. Because we got an email about it from their PR department, but that they're doing an E60 piece this Sunday on Michelle Watterson.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I know that's not like way down the card, but at least it's easy to go, hey, man, because ESPN has all these financial resources, right? They've got all, the skill and talent in terms of like video production and television production, and it's easy to go, well, let's talk about the main event, because of course everybody's talking about the main event, but man, when you can sneak a little further down the card and start identifying those other names, I think you give people a reason to learn, because as we're talking about this whole time, you just can't, as an average consumer of this sport, even as a hardcore consumer of this sport, you can't know all these people unless it's like us. It's our job. Like, it's literally our job to know everybody on the card. And even then, it's hard for us. So if you can pick people,
I can't even do that,
and highlight stories.
Yeah,
it's key.
It's literally it would be a full-time job just to research the people on the card, let alone try to actually have a life and do whatever. You'd have to nonstop.
There's where I beat you, sir. There's where I was able to accomplish. I said, life. I don't need a life. Get rid of a life.
It's crazy, but yeah, no, I mean, when it comes to the budget of what ESPN has and the resources, they use a lot of freelancers. They use a lot of people in the towns, in the areas where they go. A lot of times they'll fly producers or somebody out there, somebody that sort of put it together. So they have great crews that they're able to get, and I mean, the money behind what they're able to do. I mean, they put out some incredible stuff. But when it comes to like the Karate Hottie, I mean, that's almost like low-hanging fruit. They're not picking some no-name, chump to not cover. I mean, like, good on them. I mean, but she has such a cool story. She does. She is just as bubbly and as energetic as anybody.
Amazing.
Her personality that's the kind of person you want to throw out there. And I think on
photogenic, of course, very
beautiful,
photogenic. Yep.
Beautiful. But also, like, if ESPN wants to attract a certain group of their already viewers to pay attention to something else, why not throw somebody like her out there? And that's also, it's going to reach out to female viewers that maybe haven't bought in yet to the whole MMA thing. I mean, she's a perfect candidate. I mean, they're very, very smart in picking the right people. And I think it's the same thing with Bryce. Bryce is another
he's great,
good-looking kid. He's got I love his
funny
accent.
personality. His accent's hilarious.
Personality, his accent. I mean, like, and his openness, especially even about the whole accent, which is one of the most embarrassing things that could possibly happen. But he braced it by the horns and just took it, and you love him all the more for it, So I mean, kudos on them for doing that. But yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to them start really looking and finding some of the hidden gems. But I guess that's why Junkie's able to exist. That could be our thing, which has always kind of been our thing.
You know what? Fair play. In second thought, I hate what ESPN is doing. Have I mentioned how silly it is for them to – they really just need to hone in on the main event.
Hone in on the main
What are you guys doing wasting your time down the card? Hone in on that main event.
Leave something for the junkies out there.
That's too funny. I will say this. For anybody that doesn't know, so this Cage Mom, and you're right. I mean, they did take a different route, which I think is kind of what you're alluding to. We got this message from ESPN PR. This Sunday – on ESPN E60. It airs at 9 a.m. Eastern on ESPN and 10 a.m. Eastern on ESPN2. So if you want to see this, it's called Cage Mom. And here's a little synopsis. 8 years ago, Michelle Waterson was still in the early stages of her professional MMA career when UFC President Dana White famously declared that no women would ever fight in the UFC. Around that same time, she learned that she was going to have a baby. But instead of ending her career, baby Araya gave Waterson the one thing she didn't realize she was missing, a reason to fight. Today, Waterson, known as the Karate Hottie, is the UFC's 9th-ranked strawweight, and she's among 6 fighters who are mothers to crack the top 10. She sat down with E60's Tisha Thompson to talk about how she balances motherhood and her professional fighting career and why she's decided to allow her now 8-year-old daughter to watch every one of her fights, no matter how gruesome they can be. So something, not just her career, but her family and her child. The trailer for it is really cool. If you want to see the trailer, I put up a little post the other day about Dana White buying 1,000 Girl Scout cookie boxes for Michelle Waterson's daughter. So there's a little post on the blue corner, and I embedded the preview in there. So
it's a nice hookup for your kids' brownie squad, or what do they call them?
Well, it's just Girl Scouts.
Then aren't
at
the
8
young
are you a
ones?
brownie?
Are the younger ones? I thought they were like brownies.
So maybe you're still a brownie at 8 years old.
Maybe they got rid of that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, if you want to see the preview, the story, and it's still on MMA Junkie right now, is turns out Dana White is actually a pushover. Gets hooked for 1,000 boxes of Girl Scout cookies.
How do you say no to Karate Hottie?
Well, it was his daughter. Did you not? So her daughter posted a little video, and she gave a little sales pitch. It's worth check out the post if you haven't seen it. It's fun.
Brownies. The Girl Scouts are the brownies. I think where they maybe start grades 2 and 3.
Okay, so she's probably still a brownie.
Wow, I'm looking at grade level. Daisies, brownies, juniors, cadets, seniors, and ambassadors. That's on the Girl Scouts.
And this is why you listen to the MMA Roadshow, because you don't know what the ranks of Girl Scouts are. And you were thinking to yourself,
a daisy was kindergarten to first grade.
What is the rank of Girl Scout? You were thinking about that.
You want to know what a junior? That's grade 4 through 5. Cadets, 6 through 8. Seniors, 9 to 10. Yeah. Ambassadors, 11 to 12. Then they're just getting old. Then it gets awkward. And they're like, they find boys. And then they're like,
jailbait.
Sorry, girls. Sorry, Girl Scouts. Sorry, little brownies.
Too funny.
We're going to go be women.
All right. Well, as much as the Girl Scouts are big news this week, let's talk about what has become the big story this week. TJ Dillashaw voluntarily relinquishing his UFC title. Joins Bas Rutten, Frank Shamrock, and George St. Pierre as fighters to vacate their title. So if you're looking for a little trivia knowledge, there you go. He came out early the other morning before the New York State Athletic Commission could issue a statement and said, he was voluntarily giving up. He wanted to inform his fans, first before they heard it through any other way. And honestly, I think that's a good play, man. I know it was only hours before, and I know it's fairly, I don't want to say, it's fairly transparent what he's doing before the statement came out. Yeah, so
and it's funny because they only said it because he said it.
Well, that's why USADA said it, but New York State Athletic Commission, they would have said it either way. You're right. You're right about USADA. So he beat the New York State Athletic Commission, but I don't think it was a bad play. Now, the important things to remember here, we still don't know what the substance is, and we've asked. Trust me, myself, Stephen Morocco. You can always count on him to do some hardcore reporting. Man, he's been digging in there trying to find out. We haven't been able to find out what it is. We won't know what it is until USADA is done with their investigation. The assumption, of course, is that it's a diuretic. With TJ cutting down to 125 pounds, it would seem to be a diuretic. Would probably be more. I mean, and that's just a guess. You know what I'm saying? Again, that's no knowledge, that's no information. But I think the smart play, a guy is cutting down for the first time, it's a diuretic. But man, talking about ESPN pieces, you see the preview that they did, and if you don't remember it, there's screen caps of it floating around now. But there's these images of TJ sitting in front of a table with just bottles and bottles and bottles of supplements that he said was a huge part of his dietary regimen. So
that's from a sponsor, right?
I'm not saying that it is.
Those are all sponsored.
Yeah, I think so. Or things that he had worked with. So, I'm not saying that that's it either. But so again, I think the primary assumption would be diuretic. But then you see all those pills and you think, man, maybe a tainted supplement is in there. Maybe something happened.
So many times now, guys have had tainted supplements from an actual supplier,
right?
So I mean, could be. I mean,
that's why I say just reserve judgment. Yet, I mean, I don't know if New York would have given him 2 years.
Probably not the dick pills. He just had a kid. I'm sure things are working.
Probably can't use that defense. Only John Jones gets to use that one, right? That one's taken.
That one's taken. Been done.
Anymore.
Been done.
You're
no
like,
one can use that one.
Come on, man. So we'll see. So I guess I'm just saying to everybody, reserve judgment, because I've seen a lot of people posting pictures and saying, "Yep, see the muscles, PEDs. He's definitely taking steroids, no question about it." And I'm not saying maybe he was, but I don't know, and I don't know that taking a diuretic makes it any better. You're still cheating.
Right.
But I do think we have this kind of association with steroids as being just completely wrong. Whereas a diuretic, wrong, but maybe we look at you a little less fun.
Yeah, like they're like, oh, is a diuretic really helping you perform?
Right.
Or is it just literally letting you
just getting
deplete
the water
yourself?
Out of your body. Yeah.
And
again,
right.
and it could be a tainted supplement. It could be a tainted supplement. And listen, I hate the tainted supplement defense, so let me say that. It's not like I'm saying, man, can you believe all these tainted supplements that these guys? No.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who have just said tainted supplement. But when you see the amount of bottles that guy was taking.
Say, and I think I've seen that.
Oh.
I think I saw that picture, and you're absolutely right. I mean, like without knowing, I mean, like, who wouldn't want to be able to receive free product that you can, even if it's stuff that you've used in the past and you trust the company and you're willing to put your name behind it, you're willing to put it out there to your Instagram followers, you have this complete trust of what's supposed to be, that what you're giving is good and that that it's legit. But we all know that shit can happen with companies. Things can get lax on their end. Maybe what was good at one point, maybe they're not really being stringent on their safety measures, and maybe something has slipped through. I mean, I just think in my personal dealings with him and seeing his work ethic and things of that sort, I don't see him ever wanting to have the need to take something that would enhance his performance. He's already a stud.
I'm glad you said that, because I feel the same way. And I'm not trying to make excuses for the guy, but I think about it too. When you're around him, I mean, he just doesn't seem like the guy that would set that.
He doesn't look like a guy that would want a shortcut.
Looking for the easy way out, right?
Looking for the easy way out. Like, I can see it now.
Now he's hyper competitive. He's hyper competitive. So would he be looking for every edge? See, that's why I keep bouncing.
This is a guy I think that believed completely 100% that he would not need an edge to beat Henry Cejudo. I think if somebody's really trying to take something, they feel like they need that edge. I firmly think he believes that he easily could have taken that division on his own, and I just don't think that he would want to. Now, a diuretic, I can see if it gets to a point where he's like, this isn't working. This is not coming off. It's not coming off like I thought. I can see where something like that.
In the throes of a weight cut, days out from a title fight that I can't see that.
He was so shredded.
I can see that.
He was so fucking shredded that, I mean, I know we all were wondering how could he possibly get anything else off of his body. And we, like you said, we don't know what it is. I mean, he could have smoked some weed. He could have been hanging out with the Diaz brothers and was like smoking something. I mean, it's unfortunate, but I just don't. This is a guy that I feel that if he was inherently a cheater, we would have saw something by now.
Yeah.
Like, he has never shown me anything that would make him think anything otherwise. So I just don't feel him feeling like he needed the edge, because I believe that he felt that he had all the skills. The only thing that was a problem was weight.
Shedding the weight.
And I don't see him wanting to take a PD for that would cause any other problem, let alone gain strength, gain muscle.
Yeah, it's funny when you talk to people that really understand the PED culture and the sporting culture and that sort of thing. Man, they'll tell you that a lot of times they feel that people that are on PEDs are mentally weak. You know what I mean? That they feel like they have to have that stuff to be successful. And Dillashaw doesn't strike me as that kind of guy. The unfortunate thing is, he's such a polarizing personality that I think people hate him so bad. There's a section of people that hate him so bad. I mean, there's a section of people that love him, but there's a section of people that hate him so bad that they're like, as soon as you popped, I knew you were cheating. I knew it was.
I think there's definitely an inherent part of human beings, I think, where we are jealous animals, where there's always a part of us that wants to find some weakness in others to make us feel better when we have our own deficiencies. So when we see somebody succeed, I think it's hard for us sometimes to not be happy for people. So I think there's a group of people out there that just always, they're like, I knew it was too good to be true. I knew there was something about this guy. Maybe they just the way that he is. A lot of time people have bold, brash personalities, and people just find that very off-putting at times, and so they want to find bad. So now, for those people that have found TJ off-putting for some particular reason, now have something to hang their hat on, they're like, I get it. I knew something was wrong. But maybe you could decode this for me because I saw Cody's tweet. What did the cup of coffee or tea and the frog?
I am
what did that
so
mean?
happy you said that because as soon as I saw it,
Yeah.
I now granted, okay, this whole thing breaks at like 5 a.m. Vegas time. Now I happened to be working that morning, right? So like I had literally just woken up. It was like 4:30 a.m. when I woke up, took a shower, made a cup of coffee, sit down at my desk at 5 a.m. and it comes out at like 5 a.m. And I'm like, oh crap. Well, I know what's going on with my day. So get busy, whatever. I see the tweet, and I asked Stephen Morocco, I'm like, what does coffee frog mean? What the hell is that? But I saw...
Kermit?
Yes,
Is
it's
it?
the
Okay.
Kermit meme, the Kermit sipping tea meme. You know how they have that meme where it's like, just,
But what does
I
it
don't
say?
get involved in all that, and he's sipping the tea, so that's what it was. Why
wouldn't he just find that the GIF or something?
Well, now you're getting into interesting territory because I don't know.
It was so fucking weird.
I
was like,
cannot have
I
been the
don't
only
understand
one
it.
that didn't understand Coffee Frog.
I'm sure everybody. I was like, and I just didn't think about it. I was like, I looked at it and I was like, huh, coffee toad, coffee frog,
Yes, it was
sipping on something.
It was explained.
And then
to
I was
me
just like, I give up. But
that
then I
was the
forgot about
Kermit
it because I
sipping
just
tea.
didn't care. I was just like, okay, that's just fucking weird.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Now, speaking of Cody, though, did you watch that clip? Because I cut it. You were the one that shot it, and I cut it and put it back on social media.
No, I saw that somebody put it, but I didn't go back to look at what it was.
That bizarre one. Now remember that clip? We were at the press conference.
Where he pretty much
that clip
said, he about the teaching
where
Team
he said
Alpha
you
Male.
showed us all how to do it at Team Alpha Male, which at the time was the weirdest thing because it's like, okay, you're accusing him of being on steroids, but you're also admitting that he showed you how to do it. Now, I guess that doesn't mean that you did it. It just means, okay, maybe you saw the lesson, but you didn't do it.
Or it could have just been somebody talking. It could have been,
I know.
Like.
But so now do you put stock in that? Because I remember at the time everybody's just like, whoa, that's bizarre. And now it's obviously come back to light. I mean, was Cody up there just telling the truth, or was he just throwing barbs?
I think if it was probably the truth, then why aren't we seeing any other failings from any alpha male guys?
Right.
Unless it was just like somebody just talking shit. I mean, I remember thinking at the time, I was like, whoa, we're really seeing some behind the scenes shit. But
so awkward.
Why are we not seeing anything from any alpha male guys? So I can't think that it was like a rampant, like, oh, we're all doing it because we had the best coach in the world showing us, like what name one guy that's popped from there.
Like Dillashaw was just the mastermind of all.
Like they were so good.
And he's been gone for so long. It's interesting. Just that quote definitely came back to surface.
Yeah.
It was awkward when it was
said.
That's
right.
It's awkward now. I guess for whatever reason, I mean, he says that he and his team, Dillashaw says he and his team are going to continue to investigate this. I guess my only advice, not that TJ is listening and wanting advice, but just in general, man, and I think this is honestly a pretty good life principle, but dude, if it turns out that you did get busted for something, just admit it. Just admit it, apologize, and promise to get better. And, man, I feel like when you do that people like redemption stories, man. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if you just go, yeah, man, I screwed up. I had never done it before. But, if it is a diuretic, man, that weight cut, it was so hard, but I wasn't going to fail. And I've never cheated before, but I just knew that I couldn't miss weight. I think people go, yeah, man, that sucks, but understand where you're coming from, bro. Now, if it turns out it's steroids, a tougher sell, but still, I mean, if you just go, man, I never cheated before, but knowing that I was, this was a chance at history. This was a chance to do something that had never been done before. People had gone up in weight, but nobody had ever gone down in weight. And I just, man, I let the moment catch up with me. This was my moment to be a superstar and to take care of my family for the rest of my life. And I got caught up, and I think people go, all right, man, like, I don't dig it, but I feel where you're coming from, and let's get you back in the fold, and let's prove that you're going to stay clean. You know what I mean? That's just, to me, the biggest deal. For whatever reason, there is something here. I just hope that he'll say, hey, man, here's what it was, and I own it, and I apologize, and I'm moving on.
Yeah, but, man, if it is a tainted thing, I mean, like, remembering that picture with all those things, where do you even begin? Where do you even begin?
Dude, and I think they said it's like...
It was all the bottles of just one product. Maybe it was.
And I want to say Nowitzki said it's like $1,000 to test like
cheap.
each one. So if he's taking like 20 different things, you're talking about
not cheap.
20 G's just to get it tested, which I guess in the scheme of a huge fight purse isn't that much, but it still sounds like a lot of money just to test some pills.
I mean, I'm sure everybody can think of say if it was 20 things they want to get tested, I'm sure there's a lot better uses of $20,000 you've been saving around for other things
Yeah, man.
than to just have to be used to exonerate your name, But
We'll see. The story is definitely not over, man. I think that's one thing to remember. It is innocent until proven guilty, and that's what USADA said in their statement. They said, hey, remember, presumption of innocence is important, so that's why we're not, all we're doing is commenting on what he said. Yes, what he said is accurate, and we're going to leave it at that for now. So presumption of innocence is key.
But did you find that it was interesting that rather than maybe this is a sign of him being TJ and being an upstanding individual, rather than drag the belt through the mud while this is going on and force the UFC's hand, he did what others don't normally do and say, all right, I get it, this is going on, let me give up the belt right now. And,
that is interesting because I heard a lot of people say that. I heard a lot of people say, oh, he knows he messed up because he gave up the belt. But you're saying from a different point of view, which is funny because you're usually the pessimistic son of a gun. You said, hey.
Pessimistic?
Yeah. You're saying, hey, I like the fact that it's kind of a classy move to say, hey, you know what, man, let's put this bad boy back in circulation. We'll figure it out on our own, but to respect that of my fellow competitors.
Right.
If that's the case, I mean that is a classy gesture, I guess, to say I'm not gonna hold up the division.
Right. And what could take? I mean, who knows? I mean, if anything, it would be forcing the UFC's hand. If it goes, and if it does get to the point of like, you have to get multiple samples, tests, and all this other stuff, and if it wants to stretch out 3, 6, 8, 9 months, then you're forcing the UFC to make it even worse and pull back, and the division's waiting. I think it's a good gesture. I can see where somebody's like, oh, he knows he's already guilty.
Right.
But
that's what I saw some speculation.
But, if
and
he's
I'm sure the UFC probably told him, hey, you know what? While you get this figured out, TJ, sure would help us out a lot if you'd put that bad boy back. And we promise when you come back, when you get this thing done, right back in there, why don't you let us use that belt in the meantime?
Well, it's kind of weird. They kind of even allowing him to go down to flyweight and to do it, they were already kind of doing favors, and he already kind of was putting the belt and the division on hold anyways. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of nice in that way where he's like, all right, you did me a square, let me do y'all a square. Let me just give this back right now because I already had the division waiting while I was trying to become a champ. So I think it was a nice gesture. I think I'm not willing to look at it and say, "Oh, it's already an admission of guilt." I'm more into the thinking that rather than hold up the division, let me take care of my personal shit. You guys do whatever, and I'll be right back at it.
I dig it. I like the way of looking at that. All right, well, let's talk about that belt in the meantime. Now the big question is, what do you do with that belt? I actually wrote a piece about it, which was I enjoyed writing. I don't usually get to write pieces like this, but I there was nobody else working. I was on early in the morning. I was like, I'm going to write something like this. But it was entitled "TJ Dillashaw Gave Up His Belt, So Who Should Fight for the UFC's Bantamweight Title?" So if you didn't check on that, click it out, or if you didn't click on that, check it out, and you can see kind of what my thoughts were. But I gotta say, I'm really, really torn. And by the way, I had some fun with it. I threw in some names like Peter Yan, Kyoji Horiguchi, some different options out there. We thought outside the box and had some fun with it. But at the end of the day, I think it really, really boils down to a couple of options. And I'm kind of torn on it because I really think Henry Cejudo deserves the chance to fight for this title, right? Like, he was already going to get the rematch. I mean, he allowed TJ to come to him and chase history, and the idea was that he would go up and then chase history, as reciprocating for what he allowed to do. So I really think Cejudo deserves the opportunity, but at the same time, I really want 125 to stick around. And I know a lot of people have already kind of given up on the division, but I haven't. There's a couple flyweight fights this weekend. I mean, I want to see the flyweight division stick around. I'm hopeful that it can. So for that reason, I'd kind of like Henry Cejudo to go back down and fight at 125 pounds. Now, Marlon Moraes definitely deserves to be at 135. He is the clear number one contender. His performances in the UFC have been phenomenal. Yes, he lost a split decision, but he has come back in phenomenal fashion, man. There's no way you can make a bantamweight title fight without Marlon Moraes in it. If you do, it's not a legitimate title fight. But then it boils down to me, if you don't want to go Cejudo because you want him at 125, I like Aljamain Sterling and I like Pedro Munoz. And I'm torn on those, man. I'm torn on those. So I think in a perfect scenario, I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to see Cejudo go back down to 125, and I'd like to see Moraes versus, I think Aljamain. I know they just fought, and I know Aljamain knocked him out, but he's responded in fine fashion, and I kind of want to see them revisit that fight. Pedro Munoz, though, is like, if Sterling is 2A, then Pedro Munoz is 2B. I think he deserves to be there as well. He definitely would deserve to be in a number one contender fight. But I think I'm leaning. I want to see Moraes Aljamain.
That would be a good fight.
Yeah,
I do like that. For me, the whole Henry thing and going up, I think that in my mind that was only tied with TJ. That was reciprocating the fact of you let TJ come down, I'm gonna go back up. But I think once TJ got out of that, I don't feel
it's not as intriguing.
It's not as intriguing, and I just don't feel that it's warranted.
And didn't he say he was going to save the flyweight division?
He wanted to save the flyweight.
How can you say you're going to save the flyweight division?
Yeah.
They'd be like, eventually, but right now I'm going to bantamweight.
Yeah, I think, and then all you're doing now is just holding up the division and giving the possibility, giving the UFC the whole thing that where TJ came down. I think Henry took that whole division, put on his shoulders, like, screw you at your belt, coming to my division, trying to knock my division out. He, in the same sense, would be the same sort of thing if he's going up. He's realizing
that's it.
As the champ of flyweight, you're willing to leave that.
You would literally be a hypocrite, right?
You would be a hypocrite.
You would literally be a hypocrite.
But I just felt that it was tied. I feel like it was really tied to TJ. I can see where the rematch, but after TJ was taken out of the equation, I just don't see Henry. I don't see the need for that. But Marlon, I agree, has done enough to get that. I like the Pedro Munoz though as well, but I like Aljamain. I think either one of those guys are great candidates for it. Aljo, that would be a really, really exciting fight.
Yeah, man.
Be a lot of good talking going into it as well. Probably more shit talking in that matchup than Pedro. Pedro doesn't shit talk.
Yeah, Pedro will compliment you on your impressive
say
wardrobe.
How well you look, But that would be a good fight, But he's tough as nails.
I can see Pedro just like, I'm excited for this fight because Marlon is a fine representative of our native country, Brazil. His English is phenomenal. He's done a great job of learning a second language.
He's a great cook, I've heard. I bet he doesn't have any parking tickets at all.
None. That's so great.
But
he deserves to be in there.
There's definitely, I definitely think it should be Marlon. I mean, hopefully they'll just make it nice and clean and don't try to. I guess they wouldn't have to do an interim since it's vacant.
Yeah, no,
at
you
this
go straight
point,
into
so you
it.
just go straight into the belt. So I think that's great. I would be happy with either one of those. So yeah, I guess in the terms of what the fight week and what would be funner, would probably be better if it was Marlon and Aljo. But
yeah,
I would be happy.
And
with
I hate to say that because I like Pedro a lot, man. He's always been great to us. And I remember telling, like, after that Garbrandt fight, he just came up to say hello real quick, and I was like, bro, you keep doing that, you don't have to talk trash. They're going to give you a title shot. So I kind of feel bad being like, hey man, it's coming, and then be like, yeah, but I'm not giving it to you.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the other big news this week. UFC signing a brand new deal with ESPN, extended through 2025, so it went from 5 years to 7 years, and another key component.
The other deal was still brand new.
I know, right? Taking over the pay-per-view as well. And yeah, that's it, man. Who saw that coming, man?
No one.
3 months into a 5-year deal, they're completely redoing it. And, I guess bottom line is you have to feel that if that was the case, everybody involved on both sides of the deal must have loved what they were seeing so far to be willing to look at extending it and redoing it.
I wonder. You think that it was, but I wonder if it was like one of those just weird things that behind the scenes, like, we don't realize, like, financials of a company. Like ESPN, you never know when it comes to, and especially they own Disney or Disney owns them.
Right. Disney owns them.
There could have been money that they needed to get off the table that, before it got either reallocated, and they were like, well, what's the best way and what we can spin it that we're expending the deal, but we have to get this money off the books. Let's expand this relationship here.
All right, and since here's the pessimistic guy I like. I don't know where all this optimism was a while ago, but here's the pessimism I like. I will say this. The UFC had some issues with DirecTV, right? They almost missed their last one. They had to come out with that statement. So yeah, maybe in some ways there was a little need based on the UFC side as well. Maybe it wasn't all just kumbaya around the campfire. But
yeah, I doubt ESPN was just like, hey, we're so good. For for them to just be like, it's so good. What more can you give us? But you never know. I mean, I think there was.
I do feel like this was a positive thing, though. Not a
no, it's definitely a
Okay.
positive thing. But I think also, I mean, it seems like, but for them to move that much more money in a particular direction, I could see it was beneficial financially for probably both companies. UFC, I'm sure, needs it because UFC, as much as they're worth, it's not like they have this endless cash flow of money. For the longest time, they've done business with loans and things of that sort that always kind of circulate, and then that money came due.
Got to get that $4 billion paid back.
They got to pay that $4 billion back, and that certainly helps. But also too, like with ESPN and any other thing, we always joke about, say your travel budget. If we know that money's there and that money's earmarked for something, it's not going to get spent differently.
Right.
So if ESPN knows they have a good possibility to maybe expand their business a little bit, get a little bit money off before it's reallocated elsewhere.
It's interesting.
Gain a little, another section.
It's
and I'm
interesting
sure
because
the UFC was more than happy with like, okay, well, why not? But we never heard, I mean, they didn't say any. Have we ever heard any numbers outside
and I was going to say, and that's what's interesting because the financials of this one were not disclosed.
Right.
And I even asked off camera, I'm like, are we going to hear the finances about this because it's not in the press release? The last press release, everybody was like $300 million, 5 years, 1. I mean, everybody knew the numbers. This time they're not talking about the numbers. And what I gathered in talking to people kind of, behind the scenes was it's not just that, hey, we got this 5-year deal and that, oh, by the way, year 6 and 7 now got this huge balloon. No. They went back and years 1 through 5 are now different financial terms as well. So you're right. So the money is not being discussed in this, and I was told it will not be discussed. Now,
I bet it's a lot better in ESPN's favor.
I was going to say, I know Disney is Disney is publicly traded, right? So somewhere in a financial report that's available to stockholders, I guess it would be in there at some point.
Maybe. Because it
but
would
I'm
just
sure
be,
you could
it would
just
be
roll it under.
That's the thing. It would just be an overall expense depending on how they put it out there because they wouldn't have to break down how each individual thing underneath
it's not the entire P&L, basically, line by line
we would
item.
never see anything along those lines.
All right, well, listen, I had some questions. So I got you. Well, here, let me tell you how this went down. So similar to the John Jones situation, I basically was laying in bed on my day off, and I got a call that was like, hey, can you come to the office? We got something to talk about. And I was like, what? I'm like, well, okay. I was planning on sleeping in and laying in bed all day, but all right, let's do it. So went to the UFC corporate office and had a chance to sit down real quickly with UFC President Dana White. I was presented with the information basically right before I spoke to Dana, which was literally right before the stuff went public. And I had a couple questions that came off the top of my head, and kind of here's what I had is what you're going to hear. By the way, this video we did put up on YouTube, and so you might have seen some of it, but if you didn't watch it all, then you'll definitely get to hear it here. And if you did watch it, you'll get the uncut version here, which included Dana nearly dying from a coughing attack, which I obviously edited out in the video version.
What did you do?
But here,
poison him?
Yeah, but here you'll get to hear the coughing attack and me getting a Gatorade Zero and admitting that I'm trying to drop a few pounds.
Big news, obviously, moving everything over to ESPN Plus now. I'm just curious. I mean, there's a brand new deal is in place. What prompted this? I mean, you guys were just 3 months into this partnership, right, and you're already inking a new deal. So what prompted this, Dad?
Well, that's how good it's been. The deal has been so good between both of us, ESPN and the UFC. And, these guys got a chance to kick the tires, look under the hood, see what's going on here, and they like what they saw. And obviously we delivered for them, and we extended the deal. Now we're completely aligned. Linear television on ESPN or ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and now pay-per-view. We're completely aligned. It's a beautiful thing. It's going to be great for the fans, the fighters, us, and ESPN.
We know the 5-year deal, the numbers that were thrown out the first time around. Are the numbers being made public? What are years 6 and 7 going to bring in terms of revenue for the UFC?
Yeah, it's a 7-year deal now, and the deal doesn't suck. It's a damn good deal. And but at the end of the day, what it's more about is how do you take this thing to the next level? How do you get to the next level? And if you look at the landscape out there right now, with the way cord cutting, real numbers dropping like rocks. So when you're in a position like we're in, you have to look and say, what is our best option? Where do we go from here? Well, we're completely aligned with ESPN and what they feel the future holds and where it's going. and we agree with everything that they're doing. So to be with these guys for the next 7 years, life is all about timing. Business is all about timing. It was the perfect place and the perfect time right now for us to be with ESPN.
Is it concerning at all? Because you're right. Everything you're saying about cord cutting is right. I've done it recently, man. I get it. But I think the thought process always used to be make sure your pay-per-view is available in as many places as possible so it's accessible to as many consumers as possible. Is it, kind of a risk here?
No, it still is. Listen, if you have Netflix, you can get ESPN Plus. I mean, it's that. You know how many people have Netflix and Hulu and all these other devices? If you have them, you can get ESPN Plus. It's that easy, and that's where it's going. And the timing is perfect. If I had any other television deal right now, I'd be looking, going, "Oh my God, what's going to happen in the next 5 years?" Because if you look at how many subs are dropping year after year, off different platforms, from DirecTV to cable to whatever's out there, they're dropping like rocks, and we're ready for it.
Do you know, is there like a section of the population that you just won't be able to reach now? I mean, I feel like everybody's got a pretty strong internet connection these days.
Everybody's streaming. I mean, if you look at anybody and the way they're watching sports, my daughter plays volleyball, right? So when I go there, all the dads that are there during NFL season are watching the games on their iPads or, whatever's on that needs to be on. These guys are all streaming. Everybody's streaming. I mean, these guys are 50 years old and they're streaming. The streaming is the future.
Yeah. How does this affect pay-per-view revenue? I mean, is this because that was a discussion point, right? It was trying to improve pay-per-view revenue. Is this a revenue split?
There was never a discussion about improving pay-per-view revenue.
No, I mean, it's always a business goal, right?
Everybody out there, first of all, there's always negativity and people talking about our business. Nobody knows anything about our business. They know nothing about our business. So you see this talk, 2017 was the worst year for the UFC. Megan O'Leary hit me with a bunch of headlines after we sold the company. Why 2017 is the worst year? Not true. Pay-per-views are falling. Not true. The list goes on and on of all this negativity about our business. None of it's true. The business is obviously doing very well, or we wouldn't be in the position that we're in right now. And, that's why I told you guys a million times, I block all this noise out. I don't listen to any of this stuff. You know what I mean? I'm going to listen to some guy who writes for a living, who's never built anything, nobody's ever depended on him for a paycheck for anything, and all these other things to tell me about my business. This was the right move at the right time. And ESPN has been an incredible partner in just a short amount of time. I love the way that they run their company. Everything works together. .com works with TV. TV works with social media. Social media works with .com. And then all the other businesses that they own work together. We're going to blow this thing up. It's going to be massive. It is the future. When you look at these younger kids, my kids are 16 and 17 years old. They don't even know what CBS, NBC, or any of these networks are. That's not their world. That's not where they live. These guys live online. They stream everything that they do. They don't even know they know programs. They know what they want to watch and where they can find it. It's not about networks anymore. But ESPN has done a really good job of getting in with the young groups. My kids have the ESPN app. My kids stream on ESPN. They follow ESPN on social media. They're killing it. These guys are way ahead of the curve. They're literally beating everybody out there as far as networks are concerned with streaming.
Are you able to say, though, how this works as far as, like, when somebody buys a pay-per-view, does 50% go to ESPN and 50% goes to the UFC, or how does that work now? So these guys are going to – the other thing that's great for the fans is they're going to start bundling stuff, too.
Very hard to do that in the old days because, you had so many different players. Now we just have ESPN. And we're both aligned with our goals and what we want to do. So it's going to be so much better for the fans. Obviously, in the beginning, change is weird. Everybody hates change. But once we get dialed in, it's going to be amazing.
I saw that.
Sorry, man.
No worries.
You want something?
Gatorade would be nice. I think I got Gatorade. That'd be great.
0,
Thanks,
too.
man. Oh, perfect. Didn't even know it. Didn't even know they made Gatorade 0.
Yeah, 0. It's fucking great, too,
That's
right?
good. I like that. I'm finally trying to drop some LBs, so this is a good one to have, man.
I like it.
All right, I noticed in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good.
It did say may explore other potential packaging. I mean, the press release said that. So is this like some type of service where you pay a flat rate and you get everything? You know, fans have asked for that for a long time.
I can't speak to it right now. They'll get more into that. You can ask ESPN. But yeah, their goal is to bundle this stuff and make it more affordable for the fans. Telling you, I mean, listen, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. Every time I've made a new deal, it's been good for the fans. I'm telling you guys right here, right now, this is the best deal that we've had. It's a one-stop shop for everything UFC. And the way that it works too is any new content. Think about this. We were restricted in the old days by whatever else was on the network, whatever other content they had that they had obligations to. With streaming, they can put up anything. We can put up so much content. I'm creating new television shows for these guys. They get the first look at ESPN Plus. If they don't like it, then it goes on Fight Pass. So there's never been a better time to be a UFC fan.
I was going to ask you mentioned Fight Pass. How does it impact Fight Pass? Does this minimize the importance of Fight Pass? Does Fight Pass remain a priority? What is...
Again, if you listen to everybody out there chirping because of ESPN Plus, oh, what about Fight Pass? Fight Pass subscriptions have gone up because I think that the ESPN deal has created more awareness and the whole tide rises. ESPN Plus is doing really well and Fight Pass is doing really well, you know? And every time I come out and tell people, like I said, I don't know, maybe 6-8 months ago, a year ago, I said how well we were doing, all the critics come out and start ripping us. I mean, when will you stop doubting me? It's fucking 20 years now, right? When are you going to stop doubting me?
Well, it's obviously excited. Give me an idea. I mean, what doors does this open? I mean, what do you think that this really the overall benefit, besides, you know, just, I guess, being aligned with one partner? What do you think the overall benefit of this is?
Well, the benefits are you're on ESPN, the most powerful and best sports, programming on the planet. The ability to build stars, the ability for more people to see the fights. I mean, if you flip around tonight, flip around on ESPN, I guarantee you we're on. You know, they're airing a fight tonight on ESPN every night. So the awareness goes up for the fighters. The awareness goes up for the fights. The amount of promotion these guys do. When you were in London covering the fight, they had a 4-minute piece on Till on SportsCenter that morning. And the list goes on and on. These guys are going to help us build the sport and take it to another level, which is going to affect everybody. The brand, ESPN, the fans, the fighters. It's amazing for everybody.
All right, welcome back to MMA Roast Show. That was UFC President Dana White. All right, so hopefully a lot of the questions you had there got answered. Those were things that were obvious that kind of appealed to me. Excuse me. One thing I did ask about off camera as well. We were kind of pressed for time there. Actually, literally, Kevin Iole was talking to him first. Kevin Iole did a huge, long interview with UFC President Dana White for Yahoo. So if you want to see that, they touched on a number of subjects. I was slotted in before he went to go basically make the announcement to the entire UFC staff as well. So they were like, we've got like the whole company waiting outside for Dana, so if you could make sure this doesn't take too long. I'm like, no worries. I was like, let's just get to the meat and potatoes and see what we can get out. But one thing I did ask off camera was about the commercial side of this, because, you know, with ESPN Plus or ESPN taking over the pay-per-views and with them being distributed via ESPN Plus, let's not forget there is still no commercial component for ESPN Plus. I was told that as far as pay-per-views go, the UFC is retaining the right to distribute those. So you'll still be able to get your pay-per-views if you go to a Buffalo Wild Wings or a Hooters, wherever you watch it. Gotcha. You'll still be able to go do that. The interesting thing is there is still no residential deal for ESPN Plus as a whole, though. So like fight nights and things like that will not air in commercial establishments. Now, you'll see highlights and you'll see all those things. So anyway, I just thought that was an interesting component because I immediately thought, man, what if you can't go watch it at your local Buffalo Wild Wings or your local Hooters, man? That's crazy. The other question that did come up, because let's kind of talk about the feelings as a whole, because I do think this deal for the UFC is brilliant for them. Man, it's phenomenal, man. It makes their life a lot easier. The money, as you said, was not disclosed, but the flexibility that they have now, because here is my understanding of reading between the lines, okay? And again, nobody's talking about this, but reading between the lines, nobody's giving exact quotes. But the bottom line is the ESPN is essentially paying for the pay-per-views up front, and then they're collecting the money on the back end. Now,
Right.
I gather that there's still a split between the ESPN and UFC. Like, it's not that the UFC is now like, I don't care how the pay-per-views do anymore because I'm out. No,
Right.
there's still some financial incentive for them to make them as successful as possible,
Sure.
right? But there's now flexibility, right? Whereas before, take for instance Brazil, 237, Namajunas and Andrade, right? Man, it's a great fight. I think we're all excited about that fight. It's phenomenal. But the women's strawweights are probably a lot like the men's flyweights in that they don't sell like millions and millions of pay-per-views. So before, the UFC would probably be a little bit scared. Now, you got Anderson Silva, you got Aldo on that card too. But that's a card that the UFC before would probably been a little scared about and feel like they need to put a second title on it. Well, now they can be like, it's a good card. It's good. You know, and I think what they can do is kind of normalize the events a little bit. You know, instead of the pay-per-views having to be like
3 title fights.
Exactly. And then the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks of cards are just like barren. I don't think they have to do that anymore. So I think that I could be wrong, but I think the way the finances work, I mean, obviously they don't want to deliver duds to ESPN. They don't want to
Right.
they don't want ESPN to go, dude, what happened? I mean, and Connor's not going to be on a fight night when he comes back. That's not going to happen. But the UFC, remembering that whole sale process a few years ago, that was in the financial thing, is that one of the challenges we have in this business is that everything is so up and down with pay-per-views. That's not the case anymore. So that's good. The UFC gets the money up front. I think ESPN gets a little bit more on the back. And don't forget this, and I had to look it up to remind myself, but I thought I remembered that ESPN, they own the streaming service that they use. They bought a company called BAMTech back in 2017 before they launched ESPN Plus. So they own that company. So it's not like, you know, man, that pay-per-view model on like cable where they split it 50-50 or 60-40. Nah, dog, it's 100-0 now, which is incredible, right? The finances are good. And I think ultimately this will be good for the fans because, and I think Dave Shaw actually gave an interview to Aaron Bronstetter up at TSN. I haven't seen it yet because I was working all day today, but I saw a headline, and they had kind of hinted at this as well. But basically that ESPN is going to set the price of these pay-per-views now, right? So I think they're going to eventually kind of implement a little bit of dynamic pricing where, like, if a card isn't that great, maybe go, well, this one's $39.99. You know, this one's $44.99. So I think they're going to be able to save some money here and there, and they're also going to be able to do bundle deals. I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe this is a step towards moving to that model that fans have been asking about for years, right? Which is, let me pay one price, and maybe it's a little bit more, but I save as a whole where I get everything. Let me pay one price and get everything. And I think this will be a step in the right direction. So I'm from a UFC perspective, an ESPN perspective, a fan perspective, I think this is a win all the way around, right? The only thing that scares me is that I wonder if the whole the universe of eyeballs that are able to watch is going to shrink, because that did stand out to me right away. Like, wait a minute. In order for me to buy a pay-per-view, I have to be an ESPN Plus subscriber.
Right.
And what Dana
That's
said.
what I was going to say.
Yeah.
Like, that's even without
That
there
scares
being
me a little
split,
bit, man.
even without there being a split on the pay-per-view cut, they're already forcing their hand. They're already getting a piece of the pie just right there from the top, where it's like, say they want to get the pay $60, but to do that, you got to pay whatever, $6 or $5, or
And it's
I think
so
it's a little
cheap.
bit different.
Dude, ESPN
it is so
Plus
cheap,
is so cheap, but it's a
that's
step. It's a process.
That's like a Ticketmaster fee. You can't just buy, a concert ticket. You got to pay the people that are
There's
bringing
some
it.
negative
to you,
connotation around a Ticketmaster
I know,
fee,
right?
bro.
I know that sucks. It sucks. Nobody has ever liked it, but to put, like, to use the phrase, to put it behind a paywall to have to pay for something, is very interesting, because it feels like they're nickel and diming. So rather than lower the price to accommodate, for people they're trying to, buy this first thing, you'll get your first year, and you're going to get a discount on
And
the thing. We're
I guarantee
doing
they'll
you
do like
favor.
a year free. Because I think the bottom line is you just have to have an account. I don't know that you have to have an active paid account.
I don't know.
We'll see. We haven't seen it. We'll see it in April with UFC 236.
I mean, don't you? Anytime you try to log in, wouldn't it just say renew your thing?
Oh, that's right. Because if
I
you
don't
try to
know.
log in, that's right. It says renew your subscription.
I
probably.
don't know. It's interesting. I mean, it's interesting. I would feel that the UFC then at some point would be like, okay, they got to realize the numbers probably would drop on their typical pay-per-view because there are going to be some people that say, I just don't want to do ESPN Plus. There's no price point cheap enough for me to want to have to pay something even more on top of what we already think is an exorbitant price already.
Scares me, man. And now and it should be noted that we're only talking about the United States. I mean, the rest of the world, not affected. But the United States, but it's a big deal.
There's no other place. There's something outside of here?
That's the way it seems
what
now.
What are you talking about?
But no, but it's funny because, right, like, I finally am a cord cutter. Yes, I'm 41 years old, and I probably should have done it sooner.
Yeah.
But yes, I am a cord cutter. I like ESPN Plus. To be honest with you, I watch the 30 for 30s. They have a daily soccer show that I watch almost every night, man. Because it's nice to be able to unplug from MMA for a little bit, and I like soccer. So they have a ESPN FC, I think it's called.
Plugging here right now. We got the NCAA tournament in the background here.
Your stream. There's lots of good content on there.
Even though they tried to get me, they almost got me today. I wanted to watch the NCAA wrestling tournaments are on, but it's on ESPNU for the early ones, and I don't have ESPNU on my Sling package, which would be an extra $10 a month. I was going to ask you if your DirecTV has it, but like in the evening, right now, I think it's switched over.
ESPNU? That's good.
Right now, it's on ESPN. I think it's switching back over to the regular ESPN, but the first early matches were on ESPNU.
I gotta check.
Which was an extra ad. So that kind of drives me crazy because I actually literally want to watch it. But besides wanting to watch the wrestling today, I can't remember the last time I wanted to put on ESPNU. So I didn't pull the trigger and pay $10 for a sports package
at that point.
Yeah, just to add another point. I'm like,
well,
what?
So that's the thing is, so what Dana said is true. Like, listen, like, who doesn't have Netflix? And it does seem like everybody has Netflix. So if you have Netflix, however you get Netflix, you can get ESPN Plus, and that's true. But man, it's just one more step. It just scares me a little bit, man. I just feel like, the idea. I mean, when you think back to like the days of being pay-per-view only, and then you got on Spike, and you're like, man, dude, check it out. We're on cable TV, bro.
Right?
Like, it's free. Anybody can tune in. It's free. And now you're on Fox. Now, there's still going to be cards on ESPN. There's still going to be prelims on ESPN. So it's not like the entire package is going behind a paywall, right? There's still ESPN events. There's still ESPN prelims to pay-per-views. I mean, there is still fights that will be on ESPN, which is more or less free.
We've had one ESPN event. We got two coming up this month, ESPN 2.
That's right, yeah, because Phillies 2 and Florida's 3.
Everything's like pluses.
Yeah.
We're on like the 6th plus event right now.
Well, so it scares me a little. And then you add the DAZN news, right?
Wow,
the DAZN news that came
Marquette.
out.
Wow.
What's that?
Murray State spanked Marquette. It's basketball.
Wow.
It's another world.
Completely.
I know.
Might as well be talking about Girl Scouts again.
Did I tell you the different grades? No.
Well, you couple that with the DAZN news. I'm sure you saw the DAZN news today as well. Going from $9.99 a month to $19.99 a month. Unless you subscribe for a year. If you subscribe for a year, you still get that $9.99 price. In fact, I think it's even a little bit less than $9.99.
It is because it's $99 for a year.
Right. So 99
just
divided by
math.
12 is
It's
8
less.
something. Yeah, 8 something. It's less than $9.99.
I didn't do the full math, but I knew it was less than $9.99.
8 point. But I saw Dave Meltzer's piece on this on MMA Fighting that basically explained the logic. It was obviously it talks to people behind the scenes, and it did make a lot of sense. That like, listen, we have people that watch all the time, and for those people that we know they'll be willing to pay the $99.
Right.
We also have people that tune in to watch one fight and then cancel. And what we're trying to do is reward the people that watch all the time, and the people that are looking at as essentially as a pay-per-view, we'll charge them $19.99, which is still cheaper than $60 or $75 or $99. I mean, boxing pay-per-views get expensive, right? So, and their whole thing has always been about value, about we're blowing away the pay-per-view model. And if they're allowing you to buy a pay-per-view for $19.99 or essentially buy a pay-per-view for $19.99, I still think they're delivering on their message. I still think they're delivering on their concept. So I don't think as jarring as that initially sounds for them to raise the price. I think when you really break it down, it's not that bad. But again, so much MMA behind a paywall, dude. Like,
Yeah.
so much MMA behind a paywall. And I get that MMA is never going to be the NFL. I get that MMA is never going to be Major League Baseball, at least in the United
Shut your
States.
mouth.
Yeah, at least in the United States. Around the world, I'm sure more people watch the UFC than Major League Baseball. But
Yeah. That's one of those sports I hear people every once in a while. They're like, I just don't get your baseball.
oh yeah,
I just don't get your baseball.
it is pretty funny trying to explain baseball. Like, it's like we grow
Yeah.
up with it. It's so simple, but trying to explain it is like impossible. Anyway,
Yeah.
but so I don't know, man. I still feel like MMA should be in a growth mode, and I'm not saying it's not, because being on ESPN is
Yeah.
amazing, man. We just talked about the production value they have, the value of being on SportsCenter all the time, the value of being on those First Take or whatever all their morning shows are, man. There's real value there. But, dude, I just do feel like this is a risk. And I mean, didn't even Dana used to say, like, man, that's how they ruin boxing. They put it all on pay-per-view. They put it all on pay-per-view. And granted, this is, less pay-per-view, but I'm just scared. Like, is this going to be are we going to look back in 6 years, 7 years when this deal is over and be like, that might have been a calculated error in terms of long-term growth? I mean, financially, it makes all the sense in the world for everybody. But did it hamper the sport for a period? And I don't know. I'm not saying it will. I'm not trying to shit on this deal, but it's just the one thing I'm worried, like, oh my gosh, are less people going to have access to this or be willing to want to watch it?
I still feel it's definitely going to be on the positive side of things. I think that with the overall exposure, having openness to being tied to the ESPN name, I definitely think it's got to be a good thing. I think just let alone the people that are talking about it, but it's funny. I bet, there's just so much sports on ESPN that, unfortunately we're now, when I was flipping through earlier on the ESPN app, you're flipping down and you're seeing lacrosse, wrestling, tennis. There's just so much sports, and I'm sure there's probably people that play lacrosse are like, oh, wait till the numbers we're gonna reach now that we're on ESPN, that ESPN shows us, and it's still not a lot of people watching. You got the diehards, but I think it's going to be a good thing. I definitely think it'll be a good thing. I just think when you're putting it, making it to where you have to pay things and you're forcing people to pull out their wallets for something different, that initial change can be tough for some people sometimes. But overall, I think it's got to be a good thing. Being on ESPN is definitely, I think, a good thing. I mean, I know now there's probably a lot more likelihood that my family will talk about it more, but I also think my family's not the ones they're not going to go out and buy ESPN Plus. When it's on the ESPN, I'm sure they're going to watch it and talk about it or whatever. But I think now that it's on ESPN, maybe you're going to have more coverage from local news.
That's definitely a positive.
Yeah.
You definitely can't minimize the value of that, the impact of that. So, all right. Well, listen. Let's talk about these cards. We're not at these cards, but let's talk about them real quick. You want to start with? I guess start with the UFC.
All right.
Well, wait. Bellator's on Friday. Let's start with Bellator.
Bellator is first.
Bellator, not the deepest card that they've ever had. They lost some fights along the way. I mean, when you've got a 1-1 Will Levine versus a 3-0 Norbert Novini on the main card, that they've had to do some shuffling around. I mean, even the main event itself was shuffled around. Emmanuel Sanchez versus Georgi Karakhanyan. Valentin Moldavsky is a bit of a prospect versus Linton Vassell, looking like I don't know if you saw the weigh-ins today. I know you were buried.
I didn't see.
Oh my God, he looks like a beast at heavyweight, man. So I'm intrigued in that. Gerald Harris is a good dude, man. I've always loved Gerald Harris facing Anatoly Tokov, which a tough fight there.
Fight.
Yeah, and I love Gerald talking to Matt Erickson. He said, "I know I'm outclassed on paper. I know I'm not supposed to be the guy, but I'm still in this." So this card, I think Bellator would be willing to admit that it's not their greatest effort, but it just seemed like they kept getting hit by the injury bug over and over, and little things happened. There was a car wreck involved in wrecking one of their fights. So a tough effort. I will say one thing: I was really disappointed. Christian Edwards, who's a guy that is making his professional debut under the UFC banner, or under the Bellator banner, I should say. One of these guys that they invested in early. They found an amateur. They believe that they can do something big. and he trains with John Jones. He's a John Jones protege, basically. He spent a lot of times with John Jones. He lost his fight, though, man. The guy, it was a 205-pound fight, and the official word is that the guy showed up more than 5 pounds overweight, which I guess in Oklahoma, if you're more than 5 pounds overweight, they just
disclose.
They don't even let you weigh in. But sources on the ground, if we haven't made it clear, well, no, let's just say Matt Erickson heard from people that it may have been something like 20 pounds overweight.
That's fucking crazy. That's just, I stopped cutting weight at the beginning of the week, gave up.
Exactly.
That's crazy. So I'm looking at the card real quick. So Anatoly's brother is fighting with him. He's on the second fight down. I assume it's his brother, Vladimir.
I didn't know that.
Vladimir Tokov.
I do not know if that's his brother, to be honest with you.
It shows them both fighting out of the same place. Maybe it's a cousin? I mean, if it's shown coming out of the same place in Russia.
Is that right?
That's got to be related, right?
I didn't know.
Yeah, well, granted, this is the first time I'm looking that far down the card. But yeah, I might have to look that up. I assume that's some brothers.
All right, I got to admit, I really don't know. We'll have to check into that. But I do want to share something with you. But behind the scenes here, I've kind of been trying to multitask, if you will. And as we sat down to record this on a Thursday night, as we always do, an email came out from the Nevada State Athletic Commission that Pedro Munoz, who of course we were talking about earlier, does he deserve a shot? Pedro Munoz is on a hearing next week for the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Now it's just a hearing on his temporary suspension, so it means that we might not have a resolution. It might just be, that's that kind of administrative step, basically, to suspend a guy a little bit longer. And immediately, of course, we've been talking about drug tests and stuff as well.
Right.
Say, oh no, did Pedro Munoz pop positive? So we start texting and making some moves behind the scenes. And I guess the good news is, no, he did not pop positive for anything.
Thank goodness.
The Nevada State Athletic Commission is actually going to take a look at the fact that he jumped over the cage at UFC 235 after his big win over Cody Garbrandt, and they're going to have a hearing on it and, probably give a little slap on the wrist more than anything else. But I guess, this is something that the commission is going to be taking a closer look at. Now, it's not a new rule. It's always been a rule. I mean, that's why people always go up and you see commission reps telling them to get off. But hearing from some people behind the scenes, they are definitely going to be taking a look at and it's with fighter safety involved, but it's with crowd safety involved more than anything. I think, yes, the Conor Habib thing escalated, I think, probably everybody's attention to this, but this is not a new rule because of that. So,
interesting.
Yeah, kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, at least it's for something like that, not something worse. But
I know it's weird. It's like on the one hand, you're like, well, it's something to talk about. It's also very relieving because I thought it was going to be a drug thing, and I didn't want to see that with Pedro.
Yeah, that would have sucked. But in that moment, while you were just explaining that, I did look it up, and Vladimir is in fact, according to a SureDog article that I happened to Google, is the younger brother of Anatoly Tokov.
How about that?
So good for him,
I
making
did not know
his
that.
little debut. So that's cool. Little something going on there. But yeah, back to Pedro. That's awesome that it's not something more pressing or downfall. I get it with the cage thing. I mean, you're right. Every time they get up there and they sit in the cage, you see a guy grab him. I get it, but they've been letting that one slide for so long. It's going to be interesting that now they're finally decided enough's enough. Let's start policing it. So I just hope they don't go too crazy with it. It's one thing if you go over the cage and put your hands in a person's face and then doing something in an aggressive manner. And it's a whole nother thing when you're going over and you're talking to your boss.
Yeah.
And like, hey, you saw my performance. That was great, wasn't it? Let's do something. I think hopefully there's some different line. I hope it's not the same. You go over and it's this automatically. I hope that they take it as a case-by-case basis.
I have heard, and I don't think this necessarily applies to the UFC level or Bellator level or anything, but I have heard that one of the spirits of the rules, basically, of why that was implemented or why that's a concern, is also the structural integrity of the cage.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it would
I've
fall
waited
apart.
for that to I know. You would think that it wouldn't.
But a smaller regional show that maybe somebody that's not quite as knowledgeable, and then all of a sudden, now not
maybe
only are you
not so
talking
good
about
materials.
That's it. Now not only are you talking about athlete safety, but now you're talking about like all the people that paid. Is the card over at that point? Do all these athletes now not get paid?
Yeah.
Do the people want refunds? So I've heard that the structural integrity of the cage has always been a kind of a spirit of why that rule was written as well. So
Makes
fighter
sense.
safety, crowd safety, and structural integrity of the cage.
Yeah, I mean, who hasn't thought once, like somewhere in the back of your mind when you've seen somebody get up in the cage, you're like because you see some, especially when you see some of the big guys.
Oh, yeah.
I think your first thoughts is like, wow, I can't believe he got that high up. But then you're like, whoa. You think in the back of the mind like one day it could go. I remember watching like Roy get up there and see some of these big guys straddling that cage. And you're thinking like, wow, that's just a bad physics project about to happen. What is the breaking point when you put that much mass and force swinging on top of that cage? But
That's funny.
but yeah, that's good. It could have been worse. It could have been worse.
Matt Erickson will have full coverage from out at Bellator 218. I kind of feel like, and you tell me, does it feel like you've been on site in Nashville, Tennessee this week? I mean, you've been doing all the video editing. You've been doing everything. So, I mean, you've gotten to see the interviews. You've gotten to hear things. I mean, this card, it's not star-studded. It's an interesting main event. Of course, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, Anthony Showtime Pettis could be a lot of fun. I mean, if this plays out like these guys could play out, it could be fireworks and fun. It may not. We know that a fight's a fight and anything can happen. But when you think in your head of those guys' highlight reels and you put those two highlight reels together, it could be phenomenal. Now, that's not the way things always work out.
Sometimes there's a lot of feeling around and a lot of moving around. But, yeah, when it comes to what both of those guys are able to do on their good days, it's some amazing stuff.
Yep.
So, yeah, I definitely hope that we get to see both amazing things.
I'm excited. I mean, I don't know necessarily what it means for both guys. I mean, Wonderboy did tell Mike Bond, he was like, listen, the fact that we have a new champ helps me out a lot. Like, I feel like I'm re-energized as far as the title picture goes. He knew that nobody wanted to see him fight Woodley again. So the fact there's a new champ, it makes him excited. Anthony Pettis, told me a few weeks back that, this is not a one-off for him. He does see a future at welterweight potential. Not always. He said he can still do both. So, interested to see there. Curtis Blades, Justin Willis, the heavyweights. That's a meaningful co-main event there in the heavyweight division. Justin Willis, the guy on the rise who, man, full of personality, and I think he's a polarizing guy as well. I think some people love him and some people hate him, but Big Pretty don't care, man. Big Pretty is going to Big Pretty.
Yeah.
And, he's talking about, being the next heavyweight champion, and then you got Curtis Blades, who definitely not the outspoken guy that Justin Willis is, but certainly a very capable fighter as well that a lot of people are high on. He's had some setbacks, of course. He's basically just doesn't ever want to fight Francis Ngannou again. I guess is basically what it boils down to. It is he's 10 in Francis Ngannou in his career, I think, is how he stands. So I think that's a very interesting clash there at heavyweight. Now, outside of the card, I could see people, what am I watching for on here? But Devison Figueroa versus Jussier Formiga is a really, really big flyweight fight. It's meaningful in the division. It's impactful in the division. An undefeated guy versus a guy that's been around forever in Formiga. Now, we don't know what the future of the flyweight division necessarily is, but this is a key matchup as long as it's there. You got the violent Bob Ross on there. You got to love him. You get Stephen Ocho Peterson. J.J. Aldridge versus Macy Barber. So those are the ones that I'm most looking forward to. McDessie versus Jesus Pinedo. That's there as well, and I'm not saying I'm not looking forward to that, but the undefeated flyweights against Jussier Formiga, I like that. Violent Bob Ross coming back against Ocho Peterson, Macy Barber versus J.J. Aldridge. I'm really keyed up on all that. So,
those are great fights.
No disrespect to McDessie and Pinedo, but I'm keenly, and McDessie and Pinedo could be fireworks. Like, it could be a violent ending as well. But I'm more interested, I think, in career arcs and career trajectories in those other fights. Whereas McDessie and Pinedo, I think those two guys are just guys that like to go out and bang and have fun.
Yeah, it's true. I'm really looking forward to the Aldrich Barber fight. I think I'm the only person on our staff that picked Aldrich.
Did you pick? Dude, Aldrich is legit.
I think
She's
so
legit.
as well. I mean, Barber is good. I feel like Barber is going to be so much better at one particular point, but I think at this point in time, I think Aldrich and her toughness, and she just pulls things out when you don't think she's going to do it, and that's why I lean
In
towards
the
her.
most
I think
unassuming little package as well,
and
right?
She's like the small little thing, but she is like as tough as nails, and I
tiny
dig
and
her.
pale and quiet. You know what I mean? Just
I dig her fighting
but
style.
she is gritty, man.
If Barber
but
gets
I'm
through her,
high on
that would be a
Barber,
good-
man.
yeah.
I'm high on Barber.
I just feel like she's still got a little bit to go, but
She's a kid.
She is.
She's
that's
a
what that's what I
kid.
feel like. Aldrich looks like a kid, but Barber really looks like a kid. But I think everybody at that point, everybody's just looking like a kid to me now because I'm getting older. But no, that's a good one. I think
She's
that'll
a kid.
be
She's
that'll
37, John.
that'll definitely answer some questions as for where Barber's at in this point, and I think both of them are happy to be fighting at the weight that they're doing it. But yeah, I mean that main card that's
I dig
good.
it. The main card's solid. Thug
That's
Nasty on the prelims. I'm
Yeah.
definitely excited about him. No disrespect to Bobby Moffett, who's a great fighter as well. But
Yeah.
I've been on the Thug Nasty train for quite
Yeah.
some time now. I'm a fan.
Safety first.
Frankie Saenz versus Chito Vera. I like those guys as well.
Yep.
Frankie Saenz just a nice, quiet, little, hardworking dude that'll come out to bang. Meanwhile, Chito Vera, gotta love him, man. His personality is great. Alexis Davis, Jennifer Maia. That's a meaningful fight in that division as well. Angela Hill versus Randa Marcos. I know
That fight's awesome.
they don't have the best career records to date, man, but I like both of those fighters.
I love them both. I mean, I think that they fight tough as nails. They're not hard to look at. They have great personalities. Angela Hill, I mean,
She's phenomenal.
If you don't follow her on social media, I don't think I actually follow her, but I do look at her
Right.
her site. She's hilarious. I mean, like, she is so damn funny. She's actually pretty insightful. I've seen her do some stuff when, like, post-fight nights. I've watched her go out and do some interviews with guys and break down some fights. I've
Oh,
seen
she
her
can
do
break
some
down
stuff
a
with
fight.
fighting. Like, she knows her shit. So I love watching her fight. I mean, I'm really, really looking forward to that fight. And Alexis Davis, man, I'm good to see her back in there and doing some things. So
Yeah.
it's gonna be good.
It's going to be a good card. It starts out with Chris Gutierrez, Ryan McDonald, Jordan Espinosa versus Eric Shelton. Eric Shelton's a guy I like. He hasn't had the all results go his way, but he's a guy that's always struck me as a talented fighter. So
It's a good card.
It is a good card, and it's on ESPN Plus. That means the pacing is good. The main card starts at 8 p.m. Eastern, so I do appreciate the earlier nights that the UFC is providing us this year. It's good. So, all right, well, listen, I've actually got to go to my son's practice, so we
Yes.
got to sit down and enjoy an afternoon. Hopefully, the fine folks at Extreme Couture won't mind if I walk in with a slight frosty beverage or two on my breath. I won't be talking to anybody. I'll just,
Just stand, get back in the back corner. Sit in the
God,
back
that sounds
corner.
horrible. I went and had beers, and now I'm going to my kid's practice. That
Wait,
sounds so
granted, you had
awful.
like they're very, very
I
small,
did, yeah,
smaller
didn't
PBRs.
have
That's
a
enough.
ton of them. It wasn't the big PBRs.
No, then you'd have to make sure you
way more responsible than it sounds. So don't judge me. And if you don't judge me, I'll tell you this. Thanks for listening.